That was fun. We have done with 5 questions and 5 is left. I'm sure all of the fans are enjoying this. Let me try and get Sir back. Okay, I'm just waiting. Yes, I got him.
Here we are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sunil. Good to see you again.
Yeah. So now we're done with 5 questions. Can you honestly tell us, was it a little bit different than what you were asked generally? Please make me happy and say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally. Your questions are very different on the way you ask them and the way you follow them up.
We worked really hard on doing the research because you have given so many interviews, you've spoken in so many different podiums, and you have spoken so much, and it's so vast. So we really had to find something that could make your time worth, and you could come up with something new. Because even your fans want to know something new because they have seen so many videos on you, sir.
That's true. That's true, and I didn't want to repeat myself. So I think both of you asked me questions that I haven't usually been asked, and I've given you answers that people haven't usually heard. So that's very good to know. And do you keep a recording of this and put it out there?
Yes, sir. I'll do that.
Excellent.
And I've got so many requests, especially for you, because when I announced that I'm going to get you, that I've succeeded in getting you as a guest, there are so many requests from people that please do record it and give it there. You have no idea how many fans you have, sir.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted. I mean, the point is that, there's no real point in either writing or being in politics unless you can make something of an impact on people, on the way they think, on how they feel about certain issues. And so I hope that I have had that impact, and I would like to continue making that difference for as long as possible. The day I stop making that difference, I'll quickly slip away.
So before I ask you the 6th question, sir, I will tell you why I'm a fan of you, sir. Because I'm not into too much of politics. I do not have much knowledge about it. But when I saw, and you also said in this interview that you want to learn as much as possible about different stuff. That is exactly how I want to see my life, sir. When as I grow older, I want to acquire as much knowledge as possible, different stuff. So I read a lot about cosmos, about planets. That really excites me. I see a lot of things. I read a lot about animals, and every now and then I try, because a lot of time goes in training and sleeping and recovering and eating. But whatever little time that I get, I try and get something new. It might be very small. It might be about not a world-changing affair, but anything new. And then it just gives you so much excitement. And that's why I'm a big fan of you. And that's why I wanted to bring you in this show, sir.
That's so kind of you. Well, I'm very happy to be in touch with you. You were just a name for me, and a famous name of that. But it's now good to link it to your face, your conversation. I hope we can stay in touch. You've really achieved a remarkable amount. I think everything that I knew about you was that the entire rise of Indian football in the last 10 years, you get the lion's share of the credit. Your own performance and your own leadership have made all the difference. So it's great to see that, Sunil, and I'm very, very pleased to be part of your conversation.
Thank you, sir. So let's jump into the 6th question.
Great.
I'm aware that you were asthmatic as a child.
Yeah.
That quickly translated into you spending a lot of time indoors reading. Now, do you think life would have been a different one if, let's suppose, you were spending all your waking time on a ground as I did? Or do you think that little problem is the reason why you have a love affair with literature?
No, I think that's a very fair question, because something as fundamental, as serious and almost crippling asthma does affect your life choices. I was, as I said, nuts about cricket. And as a very small kid, I had an early talent for the game. I was a pretty decent batsman. In fact, in class 3, I was captain of the class team. And, in those days, every class had a team. By class 4, I was vice captain. By class 5, I was in the reserves, because as the other kids were healthy and grew, I was more and more sickly and not keeping up physically with the others. And that was sad for me. So if I didn't have asthma, who knows? I might have become much more of an all-round person and perhaps even been a fairly decent sportsman. Bombay was, after all, the crucible of cricket. I'm not suggesting that I ever had the talent to be one of the great Bombay names, but I would probably have done more of that sort of thing. But I didn't have a choice. I was not well enough to even go downstairs and run around with the other kids. So I was just essentially sitting in my parents' apartment, often in bed. There was no TV, needless to say, in my boyhood, or computers, or Nintendo, or handheld games, or mobile phones. So I only had books, and books were my escape, books were my entertainment, books were my education. So yeah, my fondness for books was perhaps shaped by that experience. But there must be many asthmatic children who never enjoyed reading. So it did help that I had some inclination to that too.
That's nice. Do you, I mean, just to add to the question, do you feel at those times that you're missing out in playing outside, or did you quickly tell yourself that it's okay, this is what I have, and I'll do what I like here, and I'll make do of whatever the kind of situation that I'm thrown in? Or were you like really mad that you can't go out and play as a lot of kids want when they're young?
Yeah, I was pretty unhappy about that. But when you realize that you have no choice, you eventually have to adjust, and that's essentially what I did. I adjusted. I won't say that I was rebelling against it, because fortunately I really enjoyed books, and they transported me to another world. They transported me to all sorts of other experiences. I was a great fan of fiction as a child. I read lots and lots of adventures. Enid Blyton's books, which were really very imaginative. The wartime adventures of Biggles and the Biggles books, the humorous boarding school adventures of Billy Bunter. There were various kinds of English language books. And so I found myself, of course, running out of things to read also. And then what could I do? Again, I was so sick so I would actually end up writing. And my first attempts at writing around age 6 were really writing things very imitative of what these other things did. In other words, that if Enid Blyton had these famous 5 and Secret 7 and so on, I invented the 6 solvers, who were Indian kids having similar adventures by visiting an Indian village, rather like the English villages in a story. So that kind of thing was, very derivative and imitative. But at the same time, it was a way I taught myself to write as well, because my father would get the stories typed up so I could share them with friends, and they had to be interesting enough to be read. And that's how my whole literary work began.
Do you have them copies by any chance?
Of those stories?
Yeah.
No, I'm so sad to say that though my parents preserved them for many, many years, and I had them with me in New York, they got lost between New York and coming back to India. An entire trunk of papers seems to have been mislaid or thrown away in the course of that move, and I am sorry to say it's gone forever. In fact, there was a publisher who decided they wanted to publish these children. So I said, they're not good enough. They said, no, we want to publish them as the writings of a child. So I said, if you can find them amongst all the papers that survived the journey from New York in the storeroom, you're welcome. They came and looked, and it wasn't there, and I knew it wasn't going to be there because, anyway, long and complicated saga, but I'm afraid that's that. So all one has is some memories of the 6 solvers. The Biggles stories were published in the Junior Statesman. They weren't. My imitation of Biggles was an Anglo-Indian fighter pilot called Bellows. So it was called Operation Bellows, and the Junior Statesman published it when I was 10 years old. So those are in print, and somebody can still find them in the archives. And a lot of my other stories were published in various Indian magazines. In fact, until there was a big explosion in Indian magazine publishing after the emergency, I think up to the emergency, I would say that I had probably published in every single English language magazine in India. From Chandamama to Eve's Weekly, I had something or the other published everywhere.
That's amazing. The Great Indian Novel is what I thought was your first writing, but here it goes long back.
The Great Indian Novel was my first novel. It was
Yeah.
published when I was 33, written, over a year and a half between about 30 and a half to about 32. The thing is that I think when I turned 30, I had a kind of epiphany. I had this feeling that, my gosh, my life, I've achieved nothing till now. What am I doing? I'm 30. At that point, 30 seemed a huge burden, a huge milestone. So I vowed to at least try and put my writing time. I was writing articles for magazines or newspapers that have been thrown away with the next day's Raddi. So I said, let me try and do something more lasting. Let me write a book. And that's how I began when I was 30. So that, I think, had a psychological impact. I don't think 40 had quite the same sort of impact. 50 did, and 60 certainly did. But the biggest milestone of my rather hardworking young years was 30. That's when I really felt I had to do something. I'm getting too old. Now, you are in a profession which is rather similar, because sportsmen, once they hit 30, are already past their most productive years. You had some very good years between 30 and 35, haven't you?
I would say it has changed a little bit, but yes, a sports person's years are numbered. I would say 10 years back, generally, if you are 30, you are very close to retirement.
Yeah.
But now there are a lot of sports personalities who are doing really well till 35, 40. But
What's the
again,
reason for that?
there are a lot of reasons, sir. One is reflexes, one is your body, because at top level, there is a lot that your body demands, and your recovery gets slower when you're growing older. You become,
No, I
to be
understand.
honest, yeah.
My question is, what is the reason why these days people are able to play longer?
A lot of knowledge about food, a lot of knowledge about rest, the sports science improving vastly. And it just, I think, understanding side, just the knowledge. I think when I speak, because I have played along with a lot of seniors who retired early on, I know the kind of talent they were, but just the mindset and the knowledge about food and recovery, the physio, the sports science wasn't there. So now I understand, because I started then, I was a young rookie then, and now they call me fossil ancient. Whatever I know the reason why there is more years onto a sports personality, and not only in our country, but worldwide, you can see, because there's so much knowledge and information, and it's handy because when you can take them and work on your body, you will play for a longer time.
Great, good for you. And so we certainly hope to see you around for a while longer.
Thank you.
Even though you're playing in the ISL for Bangalore and not for a Kerala team. Nonetheless, I shall wish you well.
Thank you. So the next question, sir. What was the biggest learning for all the time in the UN? Now, it can be an anecdote or something special somebody told you or something you figured out over all the years. But what was that learning that really stayed with you, or something that was very, yeah.
Well, one learning early on in my career with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was that when your work is able to help real human beings, that really there's nothing like it. So, I mean, I remember, for example, I was in Singapore heading the small office there at the peak of the Vietnamese boat people crisis, and these people were fleeing communism in Vietnam, coming out in small boats, and they were being rescued on the high seas and brought into the port of Singapore, where my team and my office, was able to help them, get them disembarking from ships, look after them. We ran a refugee camp, and then got them resettled in other countries. Now, I did that for about 3 years, but there were so many incidents. There's one, for example, where a young family left Vietnam in a tiny boat with a cannibalized tractor engine to power it. Sure enough, the engine conked out on the high seas there on the South China Sea, and the boat started drifting aimlessly in the winds. They ran out of food, they ran out of drinking water. And here they were in this boat, unable to eat or drink because you can't drink seawater. And they had two small infants, a child of about 1.5 and a baby with them. Now, how would those babies survive? They can't live on rainwater and hope as the adults were trying to do. So the parents slit their fingers and made the babies suck their own blood to give them some nourishment to keep them alive. And when they were eventually rescued by an American ship, as it turned out, They were so weak they couldn't even sit up in the boat. They had to be bodily lifted up. When that ship came in, my staff and I broke every rule in the book and rushed them to intensive care. And then to see that same family a few months later, healthy and well-fed and well-dressed, and heading off for new lives in the US.
All of them
That
survived?
offered, they all survived. They all survived, and God knows today they're growing up well and healthy in America, because I'm talking about 1981, 82. So this is 38 years ago, the story. Those infants are now adults, probably with kids of their own. And the truth is that these kinds of things, it gave you satisfaction few other jobs could, and also taught you that that putting your head to the pillow at night, knowing the things you had done during the day had made a real fundamental difference to human beings' lives, that satisfaction exceeds any other satisfaction of any other profession. So sometimes I've been tempted to chuck it all and go off and just be a full-time writer. I wonder how much my writing can change lives, that, for example, I'm able to impact through my work, whether at the UN, whether in politics, because the decisions I can move and so on can actually affect real human beings, people I can meet and see, and not abstractions at the end of a printed page.
True. That's nice. That's a very heartening story. Was that the reason also that when you came from UN after 29 years, that you took the plunge of getting into politics? Was that one of the reasons also?
Yeah, I hesitated for about a year. I actually was going in and out of India from New York, trying to figure out for myself what I wanted to do. I was briefly a consultant for a company based in Dubai, and the money was good, but I'd realized that money had never been a motivation for me all my life, and it was too late to change. On my visits to India, I would of course meet politicians, government people. I had met all of them as a UN official, because when you are working as the senior Indian at the UN, any senior Indian dignitary coming from India is introduced to you. So I had met them all. And in some cases, I had established a bit of a connection with them, and I would, out of sheer courtesy, come and call on them whenever I came to Delhi on vacations and so on. So I had that link. And I would say that the ability to be able to maintain that link may have helped explain why one day the Congress Party turned to me and said, "Would you like to contest?" And at that point, it was very clear to me that I was not going to be half as satisfied with what I was doing as I would be by getting into politics. And I decided to give it a shot. There was no Rajya Sabha seat on offer, none available. I had to do it the hard way. And I thought, precisely because I was coming from a long adult life abroad in a different profession, I needed the credibility that would come from fighting an election and ideally winning it. And that's what I did, and it worked. I not only won that election, but two more. And in a little over a month's time, I will become the longest serving MP ever for Thiruvananthapuram, which is something that,
Congratulations.
I'm really, really excited about.
Congratulations for that, sir.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, 2-3 weeks to go, but yeah, I'm quite excited about that, because the Kerala voter is a demanding voter, and very often re-election doesn't happen because of that. So to be re-elected this many times in Trivandrum has been a real bonus.
All right, on to our next one then. So you have authored close to 24 books now already, if I'm not wrong.
20 books.
Yeah.
But two more on the way this year. So your statement isn't too far off.
Yeah. So I do not know the nitty-gritties of publishing a book, but I do know it involves a bunch of editors. So what is the conversation like when the editing scissors are pulled out on lines or words that you felt are completely necessary? Or does it, or is it something else? Like you give them and it's published. There's no checking. Is Mr. Tharoor?
There has to be checking, but at the same time, they cut me a lot of slack, Sunil. So I would say that number one, the editors don't find too much of that kind of thing to do with my work. Where I agree with their suggestions, I'm happy to do it. Where I disagree, they usually surrender to my disagreement. So it's a fairly balanced relationship. There's one editor in India whom I greatly respect, and that's my current editor at Aleph, who used to be my editor at Penguin, David Davidar. David is somebody who's a writer himself, and his judgment is often very good. And if he says, this is repetitive, or I think you should cut this down, or you might want to think of moving this somewhere else, or you might not want to make this argument here, whatever, I take him seriously and I look at it in that spirit. I'm currently writing a book on nationalism, where for the first time, and I've never done this with any of my 20 books, I decided that I wanted to send this out to 4 scholars I knew and respected around the world as a draft to get their suggestions on what needed improvement. And it turned out to be an incredibly useful exercise because it wasn't editorial stuff particularly, though one of the points, one of the scholars, in addition to the 4 professors in this field, I also turned to a scholar who's my niece. She's actually a scholar of literature and rhetoric, not of politics, but she had understood and read a lot of the theory about nationalism and everything else. So she did quibble about certain specific words, being a literature professor. The others were more giving me substantive things and guiding me to additional reading and additional reference material. Because I felt that when you're writing a book about something like nationalism, which I'm writing for ordinary readers, I hope that it's a book you will read, Sunil, people who read op-eds and newspapers will read. But at the same time, it's got to stand up to the scrutiny of those who are spending all their time studying academically a subject like nationalism, teaching it, and so on. They can't tell you, listen, this is completely out of date, or you've missed all the new research and new theories about this or that. So you have to write for a general readership, like a newspaper readership, while at the same time you can't be off academically with the scholars. And that's why in this particular book, I have also sent out the manuscript to scholars. And so in a sense, the final product will benefit not just from editing, but even from the expertise and inputs of others who have worked in these fields. And that I'm very happy to talk about publicly, and I will acknowledge them in the book, because I think it's one is enriched always by this kind of intellectual exchange. But ultimately what I write is my view, and it's my point of view and my argument, and I stand by my own conclusions.
So the next time, just for fun's sake, when you're writing a next book or something, you should make some spelling errors and grammatical errors and give it to the editor. I bet the person will not come back to you saying, so it's your mistake.
No, but there are 2 kinds of editing. There is that sort of substantive editing, language and everything else, and then there's what's called copy editing. Copy editing is quite interesting, where it's a purely mechanical process. But for example, when I wrote fiction, I published novels and so on, one of the most hilarious copy edit questions I got from a copy editor and my either British or American publisher was something along the lines of, does on page 283 sync with on page 147, and is it the same as on page 190? So that kind of thing happens in the copy editing stage. So it was quite funny, because I think in fact 2 of the 3 were meant to be different sounds. One was meant to be a and the other was meant to be a but the third one should not have been spelled differently. So there you are, the copy editor does a useful job too.
All right.
We'll have to have one last question, then I have to leave you, because I'm locked down with my mother and sister.
Yeah, sir. This is the last question, sir. This is the last question, sir.
Right.
So three influencers / heroes, people that you have never met, but have influenced you, taught you in a massive way. A small request, you got to elaborate me, who do you choose and why do you choose them?
Yeah, I mean, amongst people who've influenced me, certainly Jawaharlal Nehru is one person I've never met who influenced me enormously, both by the example of his life and by his mind. I've written a short biography of Nehru, and I found in reading up his speeches, his own writings, his letters and correspondence, going back to his childhood, his letters to his father, all of that, I really felt with Jawaharlal Nehru that I had a human being who was admirable in every respect. He had an extraordinary mind, a big heart, a great vision, great love of the country and passion and commitment to the country. And at the same time, I never saw the charisma that so many people who were his contemporaries talked about. He was a big favorite of audiences. People thronged to see him in large numbers. Women in particular loved him. All that you don't see. You just see the words he speaks, and sometimes you can hear recordings of the way he spoke. But he sounds absolutely fabulous. I'm told that he was also, until he became a bit over the last decade of his life, he was a bit more withdrawn. But earlier, he was apparently a great conversationalist at the dining table and so on, a very witty and humorous and engaging person. So I would love to have met him at that stage. It was before I was born, of course. So that's one person I definitely influenced me a great deal. I think P.G. Woodhouse influenced me by his influenced my love of language. You know, I first came across Woodhouse. I'd never heard of him, and an otherwise repellent English teacher giving oral dictation. I don't know, in your time in school there was oral dictation.
There was right when I was young. Yeah.
The students have to write it out and check for your spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
So he read out a passage of oral dictation from a book of Woodhouse's. And I was writing and chortling at the same time, laughing away. And at the end of the period, I went to the teacher and said, "Excuse me, sir," or father, he was a priest. "Excuse me, father, what exactly was that book you read this passage from?" And he told me, and I promptly went to the library and borrowed it. It was Indiscretions of Archie by P.G. Woodhouse. And from then onwards, I never looked back. And that was, I was age 11. Between 11 and 19, I read all 95 of Woodhouse's books. And I must say that the way he used language had a profound impact on me. I don't write like him, except in the one story where I tried to write like him. But that openness and awareness of the possibilities of language, I think, came a lot from P.G. Woodhouse. So that was certainly extremely important as well to me. A third person I've been very impressed by whom I've never met. And I'm not sure I would have known what to say to him had I met him, was Gandhiji. The Mahatma was such an extraordinary figure. He seemed so much larger than life that you almost cease to think of him as a human being. I mean, Einstein famously said, "Generations to come may scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth." It's an amazingly memorable line because there's something so almost unreal about his life. So I think when you say I'd like to meet him, I'd probably just like to sit in awestruck silence and just watch him and listen to him. I'm not sure that I could interview him like a journalist or approach him that way, because he seems, to our generation, and yours is perhaps even one step further removed, as someone almost out of the pages of a textbook rather than real life. There are a lot of others. Dr. Ambedkar inspires me tremendously. I've read his speeches. He's somebody I'd love to cross swords with. He would seem to be an argumentative Indian, somebody with ideas who wasn't scared of crossing swords and disagreeing. He'd be an enjoyable person to meet. I certainly would probably have hated meeting but enjoyed arguing with Winston Churchill, because he epitomized everything that's horrible and evil about British colonialism and imperialism to me. So there's no shortage of people like that around the world. But the three that I named first are the ones who I would truly call inspiring figures, from those I've never met. Now, there are people I've met who inspired me. My own father was my great hero. And then there is Kofi Annan, my late boss at the UN, who was a very, very major influence, and not least on how he managed the pressures on himself, as well as the way he dealt with people. I learned a lot from that. But
that's lovely.
He didn't fit into your answer because you said it has to be somebody you never met. So I work closely.
But even the three, So thank you so much for your time, sir. I know you're running late for something.
Thank you, Sunil.
I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please keep acquiring knowledge and distributing to us. Please stay healthy. Please keep working hard, sir, because you're enjoying it. And I just hope you're always healthy, you're always happy, and see you soon, sir.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you for a very engaging conversation. And thank you for having raised my street cred with my football-loving sons. They'll think if Sunil Chhetri finds Dad worth talking to, he can't be all bad. So that's great to hear. Thanks so much, Sunil. All the best.
Thanks a
And
lot, sir.
send
Have a
us a
good night.
link to the full recording when
I
you
will
have.
do that, sir. I will do that. I will definitely do that.
Take care and
Take
good
care,
luck
sir.
to you. Stay safe, stay well, and score more goals.
Thank you so much. I'll do that, sir. Thank you so much.
All the best. Bye.
Yeah, that was entertaining. I really hope all you fans enjoyed that. I definitely did. We I think missed out on one question, but of course he was running late, and I couldn't hold him for the last one. But yeah, I'll get it through him some other time. But I really hope you guys enjoyed. I really did. I also got the list of which books to read. Some great recommendation by the great man. So yeah. On that note, I hope everyone stays well, everyone is healthy, everyone is taking care of their loved ones and in and around. Have a lovely night and see you soon. I think we got a couple of more episodes left on 11 on 10. Yeah, one or two, and that's it. So please keep watching the space, and we'll meet soon. You will have to see me again, and yeah, two more, please. Take care.